Morning. Need to warm up first. was playing it too fast. My fingers got tangled up.
Hamlin, Townsend, Brunswick, by famous Hanover City. The river Weser, deep and wide, washes its wall on the southern side. A pleasanter spot you've never spied. But when begins my ditty, almost 500 years ago, to see the townsfolk suffer so from vermin was a pity. Rats, they fought the dogs and killed the cats, and bit the babies in the cradles, and ate the cheeses from the vats, and licked the soup from the cook's own ladles, split open the kegs of salted sprats, made nests for men's Sunday hats, and even spoiled the women's chats by drowning out their speaking with shrieking and squeaking, 50 different sharps and flats. At last the people in a body to the town hall came flocking. "'Tis clear," cried they, "our mayors are naughty, and as for our corporation, shocking to think we buy gowns lying with ermine for dolts who can't or won't determine what's best to rid us of our vermin. You hope because you're old and obese to find in the furry civic robes ease. Rouse up, sirs, give your brains a racking to find the remedy we are lacking, or sure as fate will send you packing." At this the mayor and corporation quaked with a mighty consternation. An hour they sat in council. At length the mayor broke silence. "For a guilder, I'd buy ermine gown sell. I wish I were a mile hence. It's easy to bid one rack one's brain. I'm sure my poor head aches again. I scratch it so, but all in vain. Oh, for a trap, a trap, a trap. Just as he said this, what should hap? At the chamber door but a gentle tap. Bless us, cried the mayor, what's that? With the corporation as he sat, looking little to wonder his fat. Nor brighter were his eyes, nor moister than a too long opened oyster, save when at noon his paunch grew mutinous for a plate of turtle green and glutinous. Only a scraping of shoes on a mat, anything like the sound of a rat makes my heart go pit-a-pat. Come in, cried the mayor, looking bigger, and in did come the strangest figure. His long queer coat from heel to head was half yellow and half red, and he himself was tall and thin, with sharp blue eyes each like a pin, and light loose hair and swarthy skin, nor tuft of hair on cheek nor beard on chin, but lips where a smile went out and in. There was no guessing his kith or kin, and nobody could enough admire this tall man in his quaint attire. Quoth one, it's as my great-grandsire, starting up at the trump of Doom's tone, had walked this way from his painted tombstone. He advanced towards the council table, and please, Your Honor, said he, I am able, by means of secret charm, to draw all the creatures living beneath the sun, the crawl or swim or fly or run, after me, so as you never saw. And I chiefly use I'm baking bagels and reciting poetry. Oven fruit. I'm making oven fruit in the garden, the flame garden, as you can see, ripening the oven fruit to be flame garden. Thank you. It is awesome. Thank you. I know it's awesome. Oh, stuffed bagels. Why do you stick to the bottom, you stupid bagels? Just gonna put my next batch in. Where was I on I was reciting The Poe by Robert Browning. Where was I? So there we got one batch in the oven, one in the pot. I'm just going to start the poem over again. Hamlin, Townsend, Brunswick, by famous Hanover city, the river Western deep and wide, washeth his wall on the southern side, a pleasanter spot you never spied. But when begins my ditty, almost 500 years ago, to see the townsfolk suffer so from vermin was a pity. Rats, they fought the dogs and killed the cats, and bit the babies in the cradles, and ate the cheeses from the vats, and licked the soup from the cook's own ladles, split open the kegs of salted sprats, they nest in the men's Sunday hats, and even spoiled the women's chats by drowning out their speaking with shrieking and squeaking in 50 different sharps and flats. At last, the people in a body to the town hall came flocking. "'Tis clear," cried they, "our mayor is naughty, and as for our corporation, shocking, to think we buy gowns lined with ermine. For dolts who canter won't determine what's best to rid us of our vermin. You hope because you're old and obese to find in the furry civic robes ease. Rouse up, sirs, give your brains a racking to find the remedy we are lacking, or sure as fate will send you packing." At this, the mayor and corporation quaked with a mighty consternation. An hour they sat in council. At length the mayor broke silence. "For a gilder-eyed my ermine gown sell, I wish I were a mile hence. It's easy to bid one rack one's brain. I'm sure my poor head aches again. I scratch it so, but all in vain. Oh, for a trap, a trap, a trap." Just as he said this, what should hap? At the chamber door, but a gentle tap. "Bless us," cried the mayor. "What's that?" With the corporation as he sat, looking little through wondrous fat. Nor brighter were his eyes, nor moister than a too long opened oyster, save when at noon his paunch grew mutinous for a plate of turtle green and glutinous. Only a scraping of shoes on a mat, anything like the sound of a rat makes my heart go pit-a-pat. "Come in," cried the mayor, looking bigger, and in did come the strangest figure. His long, queer coat from heel to head was half yellow and half red, and he himself was tall and thin, with sharp blue eyes, each like a pin, and light loose hair and swarthy skin, nor tuft of hair on cheek nor beard on chin, but lips where smile went out and in. There was no guessing his kith or kin, and nobody could enough admire this tall man in his quaint attire. Quoth one, "It's as my great-grandsire, starting up at the trump of doom's tone, had walked this way from his painted tombstone." He advanced towards the counter table, and "Please, your honor," said he, "I am able, by means of secret charm, to draw all the creatures living beneath the sun, that crawl or swim or fly or run, after me, so as you never saw. And I chiefly use my charm on creatures that do people harm, the mole and toad and newt and viper, and people call me the Pied Piper." And here they notice round his neck a scarf of red and yellow stripe, to match with his coat of self-same check, and that scarf's end hung a pipe, and his fingers they noticed were ever straying, as if impatient to be playing upon this pipe, as low it dangled over his bestial soul fangled. "Yes," said he, "Pied Piper as I am, in Tartary I bred the cam. Last June from his huge swarms of gnats I eased in Asia the Nizam of monstrous brood of vampire bats. And as for what your brain bewilders, if I rid your town of rats, will you give me 1,000 guilders?" 150,000 was the exclamation of an astonished mayor and corporation. Into the street the piper stepped, smiling first a little smile, as if he knew what magic slept in his quiet pipe a while. Like a musical adept to blow his pipe, his lips he wrinkled, in green and blue his sharp eyes twinkled, like a candle flame where salt is sprinkled. And ere 3 shrill notes the pipe uttered, you heard as if an army muttered. The muttering grew to a grumbling, the grumbling grew to a mighty rumbling, and out of the houses came the rats tumbling. Great rats, small rats, lean rats, brawny rats, brown rats, black rats, gray rats, tawny rats, brave old plotters, gay young friskers, fathers, mothers, uncles, cousins, cocking tails and pricking whiskers, families by tens and dozens, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, called Pied Piper for their lives. From street to street he piped advancing, and step for step they followed dancing, until they came to the river Weser, wherein all plunged and perished, save one who, stout as Julius Caesar, swam across and lived to carry, as he the manuscript he cherished, to Ratland home his commentary, which was, at first shrill notes of the pipe, I heard a sound as of scraping tripe, and putting apples wondrous ripe into the cider presses gripe, and a moving away of pickle tub boards, and leaving a jar of conserve cupboards, and drawing the corks of train oil flasks, and breaking hoops of butter casks. And it seemed as if a voice, sweeter far than by harp or by psaltery, and breathed, called out, "Oh, rats, rejoice! The world has grown to a vast dry saltery. So munch on, crunch on, take your nunch on, breakfast, supper, dinner, lunch on, and just a bulky sugar punch on, already staved like a great sun shone. Gracious, scarce an inch before me, just methought it said, come bore me. I found the Weser rolling over me." You should have heard the Hamlin people ring the bells till they rock the steeple. "Go," cried the mayor, "and get long poles, poke out the nest and block up the holes. Consult with carpenters and builders, and leave in our town not even a trace of the rats." When suddenly up the face of the piper perked in the marketplace. "The first, if you please, my 1,000 guilders." 1,000 guilders. The mayor looked blue, so did the corporation too, for council dinners made work havoc with claret, moselle, vin de gras, hock, and half the money would replenish their cellar's biggest butt of Rhenish. To pay this sum to a wondering fellow, with gypsy coat of red and yellow. Besides, quoth the mayor with a knowing wink, our business was done at the river's brink. We saw with our eyes the vermin sink, and what's dead can't come to life, I think. So, friend, we're not folks to shrink from our duty of giving you something to drink, and a matter of money to put in your poke. But as for the guilders, what we spoke of them, as you well know, was in joke. Besides, our losses have made us thrifty. 1,000 guilders, come, take 50. The piper's face fell, and he cried, "No trifling, I can't wait beside. I promise a visit by dinner time, Baghdad, and accept the prime of the headpiece pottage, all he's rich in, for having left in the caliph's kitchen of a nest of scorpions no survivor. With him I prove no bargain driver. With you don't think I'll bait a stiver, and folks who put me in a passion may find me pipe after another fashion." How, cried the mayor, do you think I brook being worse treated than a cook, insulted by a ribald, with idle pipe and vesture piebald? Threaten us, fellow, do your worst, blow your pipe there till you burst. Once more he stepped into the street, and to his lips again laid his long pipe, a smooth, straight cane. And ere he blew 3 notes, such sweet, soft notes as yet musicians coming never gave the enraptured air. There was a rustling, it seemed like a bustling, a merry crowds justling, a pitching and hustling. Small feet were pattering, wooden shoes clattering, little hands clapping, and little tongues chattering, and like foals in a farm where barley is scattering, out came the children running, all the little boys and girls, with rosy cheeks and flaxen curls, and sparkling eyes and teeth like pearls, tripping and skipping ran merrily after. The wonderful music was shouting and laughter. The mayor was dumb, and the council stood, as if he had changed in a block of wood, unable to move a step or cry, to the children merrily skipping by, could only follow with an eye the joyous crowd at the piper's back, and how the mayor was on the rack, and the wretched council's bosoms beat, as the piper turned from the high street, to where the Weser rolled its waters, right in the way of their sons and daughters. How returned from south to west, and the Copperberg Hill his steps addressed, and after him the children pressed, great was the joy in every breast. He never crossed the mighty top, he's forced to let the piping drop, and we shall see our children stop. When lo, they reached the mountainside, a wondrous portal opened wide, as if a cavern was suddenly hollowed. The piper advanced, and the children followed. When all were in to the very last, the door in the mountainside shut fast. Did I say all? No one was lame, and could not dance the whole of the way. And in after years, if you'd blame his sadness, he was used to say, "Is dull in our town since my playmates left. I can't forget that I'm bereft of all the pleasant sights they see, which the piper also promised me. For he led us, he said, to a joyous land, joining the town in just at hand, where waters gushed and fruit trees grew, and flowers of forth a fairer hue, and everything was strange and new. The sparrow was buried in peacock here, and the dogs outran our fellow deer, and honeybees had lost their stings, and horses were born with eagle's wings. And just as I became assured, my name will be speedily cured, the music stopped, and I stood still, and found myself outside the hill, left behind against my will, to go now limping as before, and never hear of that country more. Alas, alas for Hamelin, there came to many a burgher's pate a text which says that heaven's gate opes the rich at as easy rate as a needle's eye takes a camel in. The mayor sent east, west, north, and south to offer the piper by word of mouth, wherever was men's lot to find him, silver and gold to his heart's content, if only he'd return the way he went, and bring the children behind him. But when they saw 'twas lost endeavor, and piper and dances were gone forever, they made a decree that lawyers never should think their records dated duly, if after the day of the month and year these words do not as well appear. And so long after what happened here on the 22nd of July, 1376, in the better memory fits the place of the children's last retreat, they called it the Pied Piper Street, where anyone playing pipe for caber was sure for his future lose his labor, nor suffered they hostelry or tavern, shop with mirth the street so solemn, and opposite the place of the cavern, they wrote the story on a column, and on great church window painted, the same to make the world acquainted, how their children were stolen away, and there it stands this very day. And I must not admit to say that in Transylvania there is a tribe of alien people who ascribe the way and dress of which their neighbors lay such stress to their fathers and mothers having risen out of some subterranean prison into which they were Japan a long time ago in a mighty band out of Hamlin towns in Brunswick land, but how or why they don't understand. So, Lily, let me and you be wipers of scores out with all men, especially pipers. And if they should pipe us free from rats or from mice, if we promise them aught, let us keep our promise. That was the Pied Piper of Hamelin by Robert Browning. Here is a story about Roland Pide and the oven blade. There once was a young man named Roland Pide who played the recorder when he wasn't baking bagels. One day he was walking through a park and playing his recorder for a while to rest from all his baking when suddenly he spied a corpse lying on the ground beneath a swarm of flies. He put down his recorder, walked over to the corpse, shooed the flies away, and covered the dead man with stones. Returning to his oven later that day, he found that his oven blade had gone on by itself and already baked half the bagels he needed. From that day on, Roland Pide was the happiest baker alive. He would bake until he was tired. Then he would pull out his recorder. While his oven blade went on by itself. But Roland Pide lived in a town whose mayor did not admire his skill and was jealous of his fame. So the mayor devised a plan to rid the town of Roland. In the beginning, he said that Roland was a good worker, but lazy. Next, he said Roland baked a whole lot, but badly. Finally, so I'm getting distracted. I'm going to start that over again. I lost my place. I got distracted by this guy outside the window here. I don't know what he's doing. Whatever. Oh my God, it's hot in here. There once was a young man named Roland Pide who played the recorder when he wasn't baking bagels. One day he was walking through a park and playing his recorder to rest a while from all his baking, when suddenly he spied a corpse lying on the ground beneath a swarm of flies. He put down his recorder, walked over to the corpse, shooed the flies away, and covered the dead man with stones. Returning to his oven later that day, he found that his oven blade had gone on by itself and already baked half the bagels he needed that day. From that day on, Roland Pide was the happiest baker alive. He'd bake until he was tired. Then he would pull his recorder out of his pocket while his oven blade went on by itself. But Roland Pide lived in a town whose mayor did not admire his skill and was jealous of his fame. So the mayor devised a plan to rid the town of Roland Pide. In the beginning, he said that Roland baked a whole lot, or was a good worker, but lazy. Next, he said that Roland baked a whole lot, but badly. Then he accused Roland of being a sorcerer. And the people turned on him. Roland Pide therefore took his recorder and left his home behind. When Roland Pide came to a neighboring town, he went to all the business owners, but none of them would give him any work. Finally, he met an old busker and asked them for work to keep body and mind together. "Come along with me," said the old man, "and we will share alms together." So Roland Pide and the old man started going around and singing, "Baker, why do you bear those silent things? Baker, how did you forget to stand where your feet are? Baker, no woman loves your wealth, although it is golden and good for her health. Baker, you are too dirty for a lover to wish to dream. Your limbs are the knots and cords of an old-fashioned machine. Baker, line the rings and bash the boards. You don't need their applause for a thing that is yours. You are a baker and are what you are, not by a miracle, but by the work of your arms." Everybody gave alms to the old man, but to Roland they said, "What is a young man like you out begging? Why don't you work for a living?" "Nobody will hire me," replied Roland Pide. That's what you say. There's a king with so many hungry soldiers that he'll pay good wages to anyone willing to feed them. So Roland Pide went to the king's kitchen and took the old man whose alms he'd been sharing. The oven had never been used by anyone. Roland mixed the dough, then he rolled it into rings, then he boiled them, dressed them with seeds, then he baked them until they're golden brown, then he tossed them into a crate to cool down. Whenever Roland wearied of baking bagels, he would pull out his recorder, and once he was weary of playing his recorder, he would sing, "Baker, why do you bear those silent things? Baker, how did you forget to stand where your feet are? Baker, no woman loves your wealth, although it is golden and good for her health. Baker, you are too dirty for a lover to wish to preen. Your limbs are the knots and cords of an old-fashioned machine. Baker, line the rings and bash the boards. You don't need their applause for a thing that is yours. You are a baker and are what you are, not by a miracle, but by the work of your arms. Baker, be who you are." Hearing the singing, a princess looked out the window. She saw Roland and fell in love with him. But she was a princess and he a baker. The king would never consent to their marriage. So they decided to run away together. They fled at night in a boat when they were already on the high seas. Roland remembered the busker. He said to his beloved, "We must fetch the old man, since he shared his alms with me. We can't go off and leave him like that." At that very moment, the old man came up behind the boat, walking on the water as though it had been dry land. Reaching the boat, he said, "We agreed to share everything we had, and I shared everything I owned. Now you have the king's daughter and must give half of her to me." At this, he gave Roland Pide a knife to cut his bride in half. Roland Pide took the knife with a trembling hand. "You are right," he said. "You are perfectly right." He was on the point of cutting his bride in two, when suddenly the old man stopped him. "Stop! I knew you were a just man. I am the man, mind you, whom you buried with stones. Go now, and may the two of you always be happy." The old man walked away on the waves. The boat came to an island rich in all good things, with a princely palace awaiting the newlyweds. That's the story of Roland Pide and the Oven Blade. I sort of messed it up in a couple places. I'm working on chapter 2. Bagels, yes, we're making bagels. Oven fruit. Baking oven fruit in the flame garden. So how'd they have camp here? The old country? What do you mean? I grew up in Alberta. The old country, I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know, if Alberta's an old country, I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, please come down and get some bagels. I'm in Richmond today. Yeah, Richmond. This is a Richmond location. The address is 11688 Steveston Avenue, or Steveston Highway, I guess. I don't know Richmond very well. I just work here once in a while, on the weekends usually. No, it's in British Columbia. I grew up in Alberta. Alberta is the province next to British Columbia. Richmond is it's part of Vancouver. Oh, okay, yeah. Nice. Yeah, No, I'm not. We're not in Alberta yet. We have 6 stores. I think we're gonna eventually expand to Alberta, though. Yes. Yeah, I'd like to open a store in Alberta. Okay. It might be a few years before we have a store in Alberta, unfortunately. Oh, those sesame smell good. Whoa. Those are golden brown. Those are nice sesame. Those are some killer bagels. Oh, yeah. Bring your girlfriends. They would love to eat bagels, I'm sure. They would love our bagels, I'm sure. Yes. So right now I have everything and pulpy in the oven. I just took out my sesame. Yes, nice. We should have like a mail order bagel business here. You should be able to order bagels online and get them delivered to you in your mail. I know there's some American companies that do that. Yeah, bagels are the best. It's too bad. I don't understand. I don't understand why Alberta doesn't have more of a bagel culture. You can't get a good bagel in Alberta. You have to go to like Tim Hortons bagels, and they're not even bagels. It's like circular bread. These are the real bagels. Yeah, Calgary and Edmonton are definitely ripe for a bagel shop. Ripe market. I lived in Calgary for about 8 years, and I lived in Edmonton for 3. And yeah, there's not a good place to buy a good bagel in those cities. Yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you have a chance to come and visit us sometime. We have 6 locations here in the Lower Mainland. We have 2 in Vancouver, 2 on the North Shore. Nice. But yeah, there's 2 on the North Shore, and we got a store in Richmond and 1 in Surrey. Let's do another poem. This one's Child Roll into a Dark Tower Came by Robert Browning. My first thought was he lied in every word, that hoary cripple with malicious eye, askance to watch the working of his lie on mine, and mouth scarce able to afford suppression of the glees. Come to BC. Come get a bagel. Come to BC for a bagel. That would be a worthwhile trip, I guarantee. I'm going to go to Montreal for bagels sometime this year. I'm planning a bagel tour. I want to visit Montreal. No, I'm making bagels. I want to go to Montreal. Try our true, authentic Montreal bagel. I mean, ours is pretty authentic too, but then I want to go to New York and try an authentic New York bagel from New York. Ow, ow, ow. My first thought was he lied in every word, that hoary cripple with malicious eye, asking to watch the working of his lie on mine, and mouth scarce able to afford suppression of the glee that pursed and scored its edge at one more victim gained thereby. What else should he be sent for with his staff? What saved the waylay with his lies and snare? All travelers who might find him posted there. And as the road, I guess what skull-like laugh would break, what crutch can write my epitaph for pastime in the dusty thoroughfare? If at his counsel I should turn aside to the ominous track which all agree hides the dark tower, yet acquiescingly I did turn as he pointed, neither pride nor hope rekindling at the end descried, so much as gladness some end might be. For what with my whole world wide wondering, what with my search drawn out through years, my hope dwindled into a ghost not fit to cope with that obstreperous joy success would bring. I hardly tried now to rebuke the spring my heart made, finding failure in its scope. As a sick man very near to death seems dead indeed, and feels begin and end the tears, and takes the farewell of each friend, and hears one bid the other go, draw breath freely outside, since all is over, he saith, and the blow fallen no grieving can amend. While some discusseth near other graves be room enough for this, and when a day suits best for carrying the corpse away, would care about banner scarfs and staves, and still the man hears all and only craves, he may not shame such tender love and stay. Thus I had for so long suffered in this quest, heard failure prophesied so oft been writ, so many times among the bands of wit, the knights who 2 dark towers search address their steps, the just to fail as they seem best, and all doubt was now, should I be fit. So quiet as despair I turned from him, that hateful cripple, out of his highway into the path he pointed, all the day being a dreary one at best, and dim was settling into his clothes, yet shot one grim red leer to see the plane catch its stray. For mark, no sooner was I fairly found, pledged the plane after a pace or two, the pausing drove backward a last view, over the safe road 'twas gone, grey plain all round, nothing but plain to the horizon's bound, I must go on, naught else remained to do. So on I went, I think I never saw such starved ignoble nature, nothing throve, for flowers as well expect a cedar grove, but chortle and spurge according to their law, might propagate their kind with none to awe. You think a bird had been a treasure trove. No penury inertness and grimace, in some strange sort word land's portion, cedar close your eyes, said nature peevishly. In nothing skills, I can't help my case. 'Tis last judgment's fire does cure this place. Calcine its claws and set my prisoners free. If there pushed any ragged pistol stock above its mates, its head was chopped. The fence were jealous else. What made the holes and rents in the dock's harsh forest leaves? Bruises and balk all hope of greenness. 'Tis a brute must walk, passing their life over brute's intents. As for the grass, it grew as scarce as hair in leprosy. Thin, dry blades pricked the mud, which underneath looked kneaded up with blood. One stiff, blind horse, every bone scared, stood stupefied however he came there, thrust out past service in the devil's stud. Alive, he might be dead for aught I know, with red gaunt and calloped neck astrain, and shut eyes beneath the rusty mane. Seldom went such grotesqueness with such woe. I never saw a brute I hated so. He must have been wicked to deserve such pain. I shut my eyes and turned them on my heart, as a man calls for wine before he fights. I asked one draft of earlier, happier sights, ere fitly I could hope to play the part. Think first, fight afterwards, a soldier's art. One taste of old times sets all to rights. Not it. I fancied Cuthbert's reddening face beneath its garniture of curly gold. Dear fellow, till I almost felt them fold, an arm and mind to fix me to that place. That way he used, alas, one night's disgrace, out of my heart through fire and left it cold. Giles, and the soul of honor, there he stands, frank as 10 years ago when knighted first. An honest man should dare, he said he durst. Good with the seam shifts, fall with hangman's hand pinned to his breast a parchment. His own band reads it, poor traitors spit upon and cursed. Better this present than a past like that. Back therefore to my darkening path. No sound, no sight as far as the eye can strain. Will the night send a howler at bat? I asked, when something on the dismal flat came to arrest my thoughts and change their train. A sudden little river crossed my path, as unexpected as a serpent came. No tides congenial through the glooms. This, as it frothed by, might have been a bath, the fiend's glowing hoof. The sea, the wrath of its black eddies, but spat with flakes and spoons. So petty yet so spiteful, all along low scrubby alders kneeled over it. Drenched willows flung them headlong in a fit of rout despair. A suicidal throng, the river which had done them all the wrong, whatever that was, rolled by, deterred no whit. Which while I forded good saints, how I feared to set my foot upon a dead man's cheek. Each step a field, a spear I thrust to seek, for hollows tangled in his hair or beard. It may have been a water rat I speared, but ugh, it sounded like a baby's shriek. Glad was I to reach the other bank, now for a better country, vain presage. Who are the strugglers? What war did they wage? Whose savage trample could thus pad the dank soil to a clash? Toads in a poison tank, or wild cats in a red-hot cage. The fight must so have seemed and now foul certain. What penned them there with all the plain to choose? No footsteps leading to that horrid muse. None out of it. Mad druids set to work, their brains no doubt like galley slaves a Turk pits for his pastime Christians against Jews. And more than that, a furlong on, why there, what bad use was that engine for, that wheel, or brake not wheel, that harrow fit to reel men's bodies out like silk, with all the air of Tophet's tool, on earth left unaware, or brought to sharpen its rusty teeth of steel. Then came some stub ground, once a wood, next a marsh it would seem, now mere earth, desperate and done with, so the fool finds mirth, makes a thing and mars it, till his mood changes and off he goes, within a rude bog, clay and marsh, sand and stark black dearth. Now blotches rankling colored gay and grim, now patches where some neatness of the soils broke into moss or substances like boils. Then came a palsied oak, a cleft in him, a distorted mouth that splits its rim, gaping at death and dies while it recoils. As far as ever from the end, not in the distance, but the evening not, point my footsteps further at the thought. Great black bird, Apollyon's bosom friend, sailed past and beat his wide wings dragon penned, that brushed my cap perchance the guide I sought. for looking up at where I somehow grew. The plain had given place all round to mountains with such names to grace mere heights and deeps now stolen in view. How thus they surprised me, saw the view. How to get from there was no clear case. Yet half I seemed to recognize some trick of mischief had happened to me. God knows when, in a bad dream perhaps, here ended then progress this way. When in the very nick of giving up one more time came a click, as when the trap shuts you're in the den. Burningly it came upon me all at once. This was the place. Those two hills crouched like two bulls locked horn in fight, while to the left a tall scalp mountain, guns doddered a dozing at the very nunce after a lifetime of training for the sight. What in the midst lay but the tower itself, the round squat turret built of brown stone, blind as a fool's heart, built of brown stone without counterpart the whole world. The tempest's mocking elf points the shipman thus the unseen shelf he strikes on only when timbers start. Not see, because of night perhaps, why day came back for that. Behind it left the dying sunset, kindled through a cleft. The hills like two giants in the hunting lay, chin upon hand to see the game at bay. Now stab in each end picture to the heft. Not here, when noise was everywhere, it told, increasing like a bell, names in my ears, of lost adventurers, my peers. How such was strong, and such was bold, and such was fortunate, yet each of old, lost, one living now in the woe of years. There they stood, ranged along the hillside met, to view the last of me, a living frame, for one more picture in a sheet of flame. I saw them and knew them all, and yet, dauntless, slughorn to my lips, I sat and blew. Child Roland to a dark tower came. That was Child Roland to a Dark Tower Came by Robert Browning. The heart asks pleasure first, and then excuse from pain, and then those little anodynes that deaden suffering, and then to go to sleep, and then if it should be the will of its inquisitor, the liberty to die. Yes, come and get some bagels. If you are in the Vancouver area, there's 6 locations distributed widely. We have 2 locations. That bagel got stuck to the bottom. That's a bagel that stuck to the bottom. Oh my God, why are there so many stuck bagels? Yeah, there's 2 locations in Vancouver, one on Commercial, one on Main. And then we have 2 locations on the North Shore, one on Lonsdale, the other one on Park and Tilford. And yeah, we're in Canada. We are making Montreal-style bagels. Vancouver style. I should say Montreal bagels, Vancouver style. We're in Vancouver. But we're making, these are Montreal-style bagels. Montreal style is so the crust is a little bit. Montreal bagels should have a really crisp crust and a chewy dense crumb. So that's different from a New York style bagel, which has a softer crust and sort of a less dense, more bread-like crumb. So yeah, Montreal style bagel has a crisp, hot crust and a dense, chewy crumb, whereas New York bagels tend to be bigger, and they have like a softer crust, and their crumb isn't as dense. Our bagels are also boiled, and they're boiled first, and the water that we boil them has honey in the water. I'm not sure what New York bagels have. I'm not sure if they use honey in their water or not. That's why I want to go to New York and visit some visit some New York style bagel shops in New York. There once was a young man named Roland Pide who played the recorder when he wasn't baking bagels. One day he was walking through a park and playing his recorder to rest a while from all his baking, when suddenly he spied a corpse lying on the ground beneath a swarm of flies. He put down his recorder, walked over to the corpse, shooed the flies away, and covered the dead man with stones. Returning to his oven later that day, he found that his oven blade had gone on by itself and already baked half the bagels he needed. From that day on, Roland Pide was the happiest baker alive. He would bake until he was tired. Then he would pull his recorder out of his pocket while his oven blade went on by itself. But Roland Pide lived in a town whose mayor did not admire his skill and was jealous of his fame. So the mayor devised a plan to rid the town of Roland. In the beginning, he said that Roland was a good worker, but lazy. Next, he said that Roland baked a whole lot, but badly. Then he accused Roland of being a sorcerer, and the people turned on him. Roland Pide, therefore, took his recorder and left his home behind. When Roland Pide came to a neighboring town, he went to all the business owners, but none of them would give him any work. Finally, he met an old busker and asked him for work to keep his body and mind together. "Come along with me," said the old man, "and we will share alms together." So Roland Pide and the old man started going around and singing, "Baker, why do you bear those silent things? Baker, how did you forget to stand where your feet are? Baker, no woman loves your wealth, although it is golden and good for her health. Baker, you are too dirty for a lover to wish to cream. Your limbs are the knots and cords of an old-fashioned machine. Baker, grind the rings and bash the boards. You don't need their applause for the thing that is yours. You are a baker and are what you are, not by a miracle, but by the work of your arms. Baker, stand where your feet are." Everybody gave alms to the old man, but to Roland they said, "What is a young man like you out begging? Why don't you work for a living?" "Nobody will hire me," replied Roland Pide. "That's what you say. There is a king with so many hungry soldiers that he'll pay good wages to anyone willing to feed them." So Roland Pide went to the king's kitchen and took the old man whose alms he'd been sharing. The oven had never been used by anyone. Roland Pide mixed the dough, then he rolled it into rings. Then he boiled them, then dressed them with seeds. Then he baked them until they were golden brown. Then he tossed them into a crate to cool down. Whenever Roland wearied of baking, he would play his recorder, and once he was weary of playing his recorder, he would sing, "Baker, how did you forget to stand where your feet are? Baker, why do you bear those silent things? Baker, how did you forget to stand where your feet are? Baker, no woman loves your wealth, although it is golden and good for her health. Baker, you are too dirty for a lover to wish to clean. Your limbs are the knots and cords of an old-fashioned machine. Baker, line the rings and bash the boards. You don't need their applause for a thing that is yours. You are a baker and are what you are, not by a miracle, but by the work of your arms. Baker, be who you are." Hearing the singing, the princess looked out the window. She saw Roland and fell in love with him. But she was a princess and he a baker. The king would never consent to their marriage.